You're listening to the Dear Baseball Gods podcast. I'm Dan Blewett, and on this show, you'll learn advanced concepts in baseball, explained simply. I'm here to guide you on your baseball journey and help you paddle through what's now an ocean of misinformation, guruism, and overly technical diamond babble. Hey, welcome back to Dear Baseball Gods. I'm Dan Blewett. In today's episode, we've got 3 topics. We're going to cover the first in more detail. That's going to be today the principle of charity and how we can apply that to coaching decisions and kind of reduce some of maybe the animosity and some of the conflicts that we find ourselves in as baseball parents. Then we're going to talk a little bit about blame and where we attribute good and bad luck and umpires. And then lastly, we're going to cover the question of the week, which was sent in by a former student of mine, Nick, who is now a Division I baseball player, and he asked a little bit about how weight plays into pitching velocity. So let's get started with our main topic here today, the principle of charity. So if you're not familiar with this, this is a philosophical concept, which is basically just saying that, look, we need to interpret any speaker's statements in the most rational and altruistic way possible. So this is saying like, hey, if you read an email or you see me do something, not immediately assuming that I did that just to be a jerk, just because I'm an idiot. The principle of charity says, look, give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he was doing it for the right reasons. Assume that he meant the most intelligent thing possible when he did that. And just assume the best before being proven otherwise. And I think especially in our cancel culture, in our Twitter culture, we certainly do not apply the principle of charity enough. And I'll give you an example, and I'm sure every one of you out there listening has an example of this where maybe you jumped the gun or a parent jumped the gun and assumed the worst without maybe having all of the information. And so I don't remember the exact details of this example, but basically one year I was head coach of one of my teams and I pulled a player out from like second base or somewhere in the infield in maybe like the 5th inning, and I swapped in a lesser, one of our backup players. And the parent after the game was pissed about this decision because like, why are they putting him in? Why are they putting that kid in at this point in the game? This makes no sense. This is stupid. They shouldn't have taken my son out. Why are they putting that kid in? Well, the reason I took that starter out and the reason I put the lesser kid in was because I needed the starter to be my sort of emergency. I might need to go to you pitching kid, and I didn't want to pull him in from the field. So this was a classic example of you don't know why I did what I did, but what I did made a lot of sense. And if you had maybe taken the time, obviously me speaking hypothetically to this parent in the past, if you had taken the time to maybe consider, you know what, Dan probably did that for a good reason. I don't know the reason, but I'm going to assume that there was a really good reason for it and that he wasn't doing it just to screw my kid over, just to take away playing time, or just to allocate playing time to a kid who maybe didn't deserve it, or just, was lower on the depth chart. But I think we do that a lot as parents, having very incomplete information. And one of the challenges that I want you all to be constantly remembering with coaches, also with umpires, is that they are always trying their best. There are certainly times where coaches are trying to get their own kid, more playing time, or they play some favorites. That does certainly happen, but I think we also need to err on the side of assuming that that's not happening until really proven otherwise. This, again, just goes back to the principle of charity. You can interpret lots of different things a lot of different ways, and I think it's always best to err on the side of saying, you know what, I'm going to assume that they meant well and that they had more facts that I maybe don't understand because I'm just not there. I'm not privy to that information. And I'm just going to take the high road and give them, apply the principle of charity here and say that, all right, I don't know, I don't have all the facts, so let's assume the best until, I can clear this up or ask. And one of the things with today's version of baseball is parents are more involved, often to a detriment than ever before. And so that barrier there is no barrier between parents and coaches and players. Where, it can be a text after a weekend. Hey, why didn't my son get any innings this weekend? Why didn't he catch? Why did he only catch 1 game instead of 3 games? There's not much of a barrier in amateur baseball. And so with that, coaches try to be more transparent and explain moves more than ever, I think. I think they're trying and aware that this is a need. I know this is something that I tried, and our coaches were always encouraged to try to be as transparent as you can, let kids know what their role is, let them know what you expect from them in a given weekend, help them understand the roadmap of the weekend, like where you're going to start, where you're not, so they understand, like, yeah, this is my game to sit, but I'm going to play next game, right? Rather than just being in the dark, hey, I'm sitting this game, I don't know if I'm going to play the whole weekend, right? So coaches, I think, are probably being better at this than ever because there's a clear need for it. But at the same time, coaches don't have time to explain everything that they do. Like in that one situation, there's no way I'm going to go tell the parents, hey, this is why I'm pulling your kid out. They don't need to know. They just don't. If they're pissed about it, so be it. I don't care. But it doesn't need to cause a conflict later on when maybe their son, who I did explain, hey, I'm taking you out because I need you to pitch, or I might need you to pitch. Their son might be aware of this and might explain later and then diffuse the situation where, he gets in the car and parents like, oh man, your coach, what was he doing? That didn't make any sense. Why did he take you out? Well, he took me out because of this. Oh, I guess that. Yeah, that makes sense. So again, this is just always err on the side of assuming the best, of assuming there was an intelligent reason until proven otherwise. And a lot of times your kids are going to come home and say, oh yeah, coach did this because of this. And they're like, oh, that makes sense now. Right? Or, oh yeah, coach, left me out there a little longer because he had to do this and he really needed me to get through the inning because we did this. Then this pitcher didn't have to pitch. Then this happens. Then this there's a lot of forward thinking required to get through a game, and especially a long weekend of tournament play. So I just urge you, if you're out there listening, apply the principle of charity, not just on the baseball field, but just everywhere you can. Don't assume people are being malicious on Twitter. Don't assume that email that maybe had some weird wording that they're trying to be a jerk or trying to marginalize you. Always assume the best and try to assume that you don't need to take offense unless proven otherwise. All right, for our 90-second mindset today, we're going to cover umpires. And this is what I want. This is for anyone, for parents, for players, for kids. The big thing I want to impress upon you is, please do not explain away wins and losses, bad games, any of that stuff because of umpires. The thing with umpires is, and you have to look at baseball, especially with its long seasons, with its many innings, with its variable field conditions, right? Like in basketball, field conditions are not a thing, right? There's always just a hardwood floor and a pretty standard size rim, right? It's not like you're playing in the rain or in the heat or in the sleet, the snow. In baseball, it's incredibly variable what your conditions are. And I want you to assume that the umpires are essentially no different than a bad mound or a rocky, dirty infield or a thunderstorm while you're pitching. Whatever, a short porch in right field. All these things affect the game, and the umpires are essentially a part of the field. So I'd like you to assume that when umpires make a bad call, that's no different than a ground ball hitting a rock and bouncing over your shortstop's head for a single. These are parts of the game that when you look at the game from and your season and your career over a long period of time, they even out. You're not just going to somehow get screwed on every call or get screwed on 80% of calls during a given season. It's just not going to work out that way. You're going to get calls that go towards you. You're going to get calls that go against you. Sometimes they're going to be very poorly timed and maybe cost you a game. But the thing is, even when they cost you a game, you need to look deeper in yourself and say, okay, yeah, he took away an out. He took away a strike. It changed that inning. We could have scored 2 runs, but we also had some pretty unfocused at-bats in the 3rd inning and left a couple runners on then. That was on us. So if we had done our job earlier, then we don't let the umpire change the game. That bad call doesn't matter if we do our job earlier. And that's always the way to approach life, not just baseball, but life. There's a distinct, everyone knows them. In every baseball clubhouse, there's the same thing. There's the guy who says, oh yeah, I got screwed. That's why the Red Sox released me or the Rockies released me. I didn't get promoted because of politics, because I got screwed, this and that, blah, blah. There's always people that assume that everyone else is out to get them. And then there's other people that say, you know what, this stuff is just prevalent in everyday life. The good luck, the bad luck, the politics, they do exist sometimes. But if you don't like it, just play better, right? You don't like getting screwed by the umpire squeezing you in the 7th inning, play better in the 1st through 6th innings, right? Make better on the chances that you do have. Don't let it come down to chance. And I think that's the big message. So when you're a parent, don't let your kids get in the car and complain about the umpires. And as a parent, don't complain about the umpires to your kids. Don't let them start to say, my success is dictated by external factors. The best thing you can do is help kids understand that they're in control of their destiny, even when they're not, because their way of explaining away the good and the bad is going to help them be more determined in the future and make better progress to improving the things that hold them back. All right, now's time for our listener Q&A portion of the show. Questions from the pious. Pious means to be devoutly faithful, and if you're devout to the game of baseball, then you're exactly the kind of person I want to hear from. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, please email a voice recording to hello@danblewett.com. All right, and our question of the day was submitted by Nick.
Hi Dan, this is Nick from Illinois. I would love to hear what you believe to be the ideal body weight for a pitcher. Does mass really equal gas?
All right, thanks for the question, Nick. Hope you're doing well back there in Illinois. So yes, does body mass equal throwing gas, right? Mass equals gas. That's one of those dorky sayings. In general, it does. So pretty much everyone, when they're younger and smaller, they throw slower. If you take any, and this is where it goes back to my sort of doppelganger test. Your doppelganger is a German word. It means double goer. It means you in an alternate universe, essentially. So if there was a twin version of you, what would they be like in an alternate universe? So you can use this as a comparison for lots of different attributes where you're asking yourself, if I did this, would I be that? So if you imagine yourself, you're 6 foot 175 and you throw 84 miles per hour. If you're 6 foot 185 and you added 10 good pounds of muscle, do you throw harder than the 6 foot 175 kid? I mean, probably, right? Like, who would bet against that? If your mechanics are the same, everything's constant, you didn't get less flexible when you added your muscle mass, then your body is just going to have more force to put behind the ball because your body works as a chain. It works as a sequence. It works as a unit. And so stronger legs and a stronger back and stronger shoulders and stronger forearms, all that stuff. How would 10 pounds of extra muscle not help you throw harder? And when you start to see some of these pro guys and how darn big they are, it becomes clear why guys who are 6'4" tend to just throw the ball really hard, especially when they're filled out and they've got some strength. It's just, as a whole, players that are bigger and stronger, and that means taller with longer arms and also just more muscular, they're going to throw harder than kids who are smaller and shorter and less muscular. I mean, I think that's very clear. So obviously there's a point where everyone gets to where that stops being the case. Like if you're, so like for me, I'm 6 foot 200. My playing weight in my last 3 seasons was 6 foot 200. If I get to 6 foot 210, I wasn't probably going to throw much harder, maybe a little bit. If I was 6 foot 220, I don't know why I keep saying my height as if that's going to change, but if I was 220 pounds, am I going to throw harder than being at 210? Probably not. So for me, once I was like pretty much filled up, like I had all the muscle mass my body needed to throw a ball optimally, then it's like, okay, I'm pretty much maxed out. Like I don't need to put on more weight. But, you know, for me as a college freshman, I was 170 pounds. So there was a big 30-pound gap of me getting to my hardest velocity. And that took me from low 80s to low to mid 90s. So I think for everyone, the question is, can I continue to pack on a lot of weight? And the answer for almost everyone, unless you're a college junior, is yes, that you can continue to put on a lot of weight. And even if you're a big, strong high schooler, there's like a second puberty that everyone seems to hit when they go to college. And you add on that second freshman 15, 20, and it's not just dining hall and beer. It's like you're in the weight room if you're a college athlete a lot on a very structured program with other guys who are bigger and stronger than you pushing you. And with the dining hall and I guess some of the beer, that's just giving you a lot of calories to, for the first time, really build yourself up. Because as a high schooler, it's hard to eat enough calories when you're getting out of bed at 6 a.m. and you're tired and you're rolling into school and then you can't eat in class or you get in trouble and you've got to pack. Like, how are you going to pack 5,000 calories? to really get the calorie density that you need to really grow as you're killing it in the weight room. Then you go to baseball practice, you're out in the heat for 3 hours, then you have basketball practice all winter. It seems like it's really hard to get on the positive side of calories as a high schooler. Because again, if mom and dad aren't working really hard to pack your lunches, like really significant lunches, plus a ton of after school food, it's hard. It's just really tough. And you're very, very active. You're running around with school friends and activities. In college, you're doing one thing, right? You're playing baseball and you're going to class. Well, that's two things. But beyond that, dining hall food, it's plentiful. You can sit down there and just crush food for a while. You steal some bagels, you hopefully get fed at the field, you get hopefully like another stipend for food. There's a lot of ways to get tons of calories, and you're going to get on a pretty good rigorous weightlifting program. So pretty much everyone, if you want to throw harder, you need to commit yourself in the long term to being as muscular as you can possibly be for your frame size. And you'll know it when you hit it. Again, like when I was 185, I was really muscular. I had like 6-pack abs. I was carrying a lot of muscle and very little body fat. But even then, 185 like wasn't big enough. For me, when I got to like 190, 195, that's when I really like hit essentially my set point. And then I like slowly climbed towards 200 at a slightly fatter body weight. But for me, like that 190 to 200 pound range was for me being like an optimal pitcher. Like that was me getting as much out of my body as I could. And I was a strong, formidable looking athlete at that point. A grown man, right? So everyone wants to get to that point. So great question, Nick. I appreciate it. So takeaway here is keep packing on weight until you're very, very sure that you're pretty much filled out, that you're a big, strong dude and you're tapping into every mile per hour that your body can produce. Well, that's it for today's episode of Dear Baseball Gods. If you enjoy the show and would like to support me while improving your baseball IQ, buy one of my books or enroll today in an online pitching course. Sign up for any of my courses through the links in the show notes and save 20% with code BASEBALLGODS just for being a listener. My online courses walk you through pitching mechanics, strategy, learning new pitches, and mental skills training. They're start to finish an amazing solution for pitchers, parents, and coaches who want step-by-step instruction. Pitching Isn't Complicated, my first book, is a thorough pitching manual with strategy, pitch script, mechanics, mindset, routines, and other high-level pitching concepts. Not sure what your son is in for if he falls in love with the game? Dear Baseball Gods, the book, is my memoir, a story of growing up in the game, persevering through injuries and setbacks, and struggling with identity when I finally had to clean out my locker. Buy a copy today via the links in the show notes, available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook if you just can't get enough of my voice. Be sure to subscribe to my weekly email list where you'll get updates on all my new videos and episodes. Nearly 4,000 people get my emails, and you should too. Sign up through the link in the show notes. Lastly, who do you know who can use some good advice? Please share this podcast with a friend, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you'll find this podcast and hundreds of baseball instructional videos. As always, hustle and stay pious. I'm Dan Blewett, and I'll see you next time.